All right, welcome to the Vetted Podcast, where we explore the intersection of leadership, well-being, and empowerment in the veterinary medicine. Hey, today we've got a special guest, Dr. Jennifer Edwards. Great to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and get into a great conversation.
Absolutely. And for the listeners that the first time hearing from Dr. Jennifer Edwards on our podcast, say a little bit about you here. Make sure I get it right. BS in psychology from Virginia Tech. Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Jennifer Edwards spent years navigating the highs and lows of veterinary practice, eventually becoming a practice owner in 2007. Her journey through career challenges, entrepreneurship, and personal struggles led her to explore transformation, self-development, and spirituality, helping her create a more balanced, fulfilling life. Now, as the chair of Wellness Committee for the New Hampshire Veterinary Medical Association, Dr. Edwards is passionate about supporting her colleagues by sharing personal development insights to promote mental health and well-being. You've been a speaker at multiple places, and you have your own business now, talking about growth. So talk about your business real quick.
Well, currently, I am a mindset leadership coach and a speaker, and I do all sorts of things. I do private coaching one-on-one with leaders, with veterinarians, I also work outside of the veterinary profession.
Okay.
I also do team training, and in speaking, essentially it's a way of teaching transformation, for lack of a better way to put it. And the end result is to help people, whether they're dealing with their home lives or work or a combination of both, which is usually the situation, to help people to be empowered and understand how they can actually have a life that they want, have a life that works for them. And to get down, I always say I want to go several layers deep to get to what's subconsciously standing in their way, to clear away the beliefs, clear away the blocks. There's so much more available for people than they realize. And essentially getting rid of that stuck, disempowered, resigned experience that so many people have.
I love it. That abundance mindset right there, right? There's abundance
Yes.
out there. So that is wonderful. Well, it's great to have you on. We met at Vet Partners, and you came up to me. I really appreciate came up to me and shared that we should do the podcast together. And thank you for that. That was a wonderful part about Vet Partners, the networking and meeting new people that have a shared passion for the betterment of the veterinary community. And we talked about earlier, helping people get the mindset right. You can't make change unless the mindset is in the right spot. So great to have you on today. And so, hey, I think everyone knows I'm Stephen Herman.
I'm Kale Flassbuller.
We've got Kelsey Wallace over here directing, producing, making sure the sound's working, doing all the great stuff that matters on the podcast. We just have to sit here and speak.
Yep.
We've got the easy job, even putting the agenda together. So thank you, Kelsey, for getting all that set up. Hey, before we dive in too deep, tell us about one of the questions we like to ask. Let's go back. Maybe I'm going back here. I'm not sure. When did you know you wanted to be a veterinarian?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because unlike a lot of people, I am not the person who knew from 8 years old that I wanted to be a vet. I actually went through college with the intention of getting a PhD in clinical psychology.
Okay.
And never had notions. I always loved animals, of course, but never even occurred to me. And I was a senior in college. I had taken an animal behavior class that I thought was interesting. And all of a sudden, one day I said, I'm going to vet school. And everybody in my life, proverbially whipped their heads and said, what? And I honestly don't know if I ever would have thought of it had I not lived in a town that had a vet school. I was at Virginia Tech, so the vet college was right there. And I did it. I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I went to undergraduate for another 2 years to get the classes I needed because, of course, I had nothing I needed for vet school. I applied to one school one time, I got in, and off I went. And it was 100% without a doubt what I was meant to do in this life.
That's awesome. Yeah, 'cause you said it. Was it 9 out of 10 or 95 out of 100 veterinarians are like, yeah, in fourth grade. I just
Yep.
loved, or you hear the ones that, the injured animal, right? They got taken to the veterinarian and they saw the animal become healthy and just fell in love. So, yeah, no, that's wonderful that you had that experience. So the animal psychology. You
Well,
said
it was an animal behavior
annual
class.
behavior. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
that I was taking actually as part of my psychology degree.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, it would be fun to work with animals. Like literally, that was my thought. And then I said, well, if I'm going to work with animals, I may as well go to vet school. It was like that simple in my thinking process. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really know anything about veterinary medicine. So I walked over to the university bookstore and I went to the veterinary section because, like I said, we had a vet school. So it was in there. And I just started pulling books off the shelf and opening them and had no clue what anything meant and thought, oh, I could do this. And I did.
That's phenomenal. I love it. Well, you talk about growth mindset. I think you just you embodied growth mindset right there. To be, how many people would have a fixed mindset to go, I'm getting a psychology degree. That's what I have. I'm continuing this path. But you were open to possibility. That speaks to what you're doing. So,
At,
thanks
Yeah.
for sharing.
at what point in your studies did you decide you wanted to be an owner? Or was that much later? Like, what point in your journey did you decide, hey, I want to be an owner of a practice, and then happen to do it in 2007, which I would like to unpack as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So let's see, I was 9 years out of school when I opened, and it took me about a year in preparation. So I'd say I was about 7.5 to 8 years out of school in practice when I started thinking about it. And I was working at a practice that I really loved. Had a very good relationship with the owner. We were friends, and he was a great mentor. I didn't necessarily ever see myself buying that particular practice. It wasn't really close to where I live, and so I just started thinking about it. I also, well, part of the reason, because then I was faced with, do I buy a practice or do I open a practice? And I had a very, very clear, specific vision of what I wanted my practice to be. And I felt that if I bought an existing practice, it was going to take a lot of time and maybe additional effort to try to change or morph what was already there into what my vision was. And some of it might already match, but certainly not all of it would. So I said, well, if I start from scratch, then I can design everything exactly how I want it to be. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. I called a business realtor and I didn't have the money to buy a place. So I rented a building and walked in. It was full of cobwebs and black, disgusting toilets, and it was nasty. And it had been a medical office, a human medical office prior, but it was vacant for 2.5 years. And I started scrubbing and got a contractor in there, and off I went with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, you literally had your vision wasn't going to be stopped by that, by
No.
cobwebs and the toilet and everything. It was
Well,
happening.
there was a moment, there was a few episodes of gagging while I was cleaning some of the stuff. I was like, do I really want to do this? And I was like, yep. And on went the rubber gloves. And yeah, I just took one step at a time. I had no business training, as many veterinarians don't, and had no idea about rules, regulations, laws. I mean, what's really funny is that I thought I knew. I was 9 years out of school and I was like, oh, I pretty much understand how this works. I've worked at several places and watched my boss and I got this. And I look back now and I laugh at myself. And I thought I had any clue how to run that business. But I learned. I learned along the way. I studied hard and used coaches and mentors and consultants along the way and did what I needed to do to get the training that I needed.
That's awesome. Well, it's interesting on, if we knew the whole story before the story unfolded, sometimes would you go for it?
Well, often not. And at the same time, one of a big, let's say, principle that I believe in and how I live my life, and oftentimes coach others is, while we have goals and intentions, and we need those to head in a certain direction, it's also not being too attached to an outcome. So a specific outcome or the same outcome, but exactly how it has to look. Because when we leave that a little bit fluid, we allow things to organically morph and develop in ways we never would have imagined, and oftentimes bigger and better than we even thought we wanted. So that's something I've always lived inside of. And I think that was how I was able to shift from psychology to vet med and say, oh, I'll open a practice. Oh, I literally take one step at a time and let it unfold.
Kind of sounds like Emmanuel Acho. If you've watched any of Emmanuel Acho's work, he's a retired NFL football player that's done very well. He has a YouTube channel that's difficult conversations with a black man, and he gave that. And we looked at it as a team a year ago or so. He doesn't set these goals in place. He sets objectives in place. And so it's the way he looks at it, and it worked
Yep.
really well for him because he's I think won an Emmy and has all this stuff going on that he achieving these objectives. So is that the right way to what you're saying there? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways of saying it. For me, I like the word intention. Um, it's even kind of like with my current business that I'm still developing in coaching and speaking. It's like people say, well, what do you want to do? What do you want 10 years to look like? What do you want 5 years to look like? And I have a vision, and I'm also like, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like.
Okay.
I don't know who I'm going to meet. I'm going to be at an event, talk to so-and-so who knows so-and-so. They're going to say, hey, did you want to try this? Or and I try something else. And I think, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. And I go down a different path, or I say, oh, I want to do this sort of work. And I do it a few times and you hate it. And you're like, ooh, I don't want to do that. And when we can let go of the shoulds, and like I said, being totally married to a set way something has to be, we allow that. We allow things to become an authentic expression of ourselves. Things end up more in line with our passions, with our purpose, with our values, and we end up enjoying it more because along the way we kind of kick away the things that don't work for us and just accumulate the things that do work for us. And that's what it's about.
That is, I love it.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. I'm also curious, how did you navigate 2008 as a brand new business owner? Whatever time you open, you chose a wonderful time to open.
Oh,
So what was that like?
Oh, yeah, it was great. Let me tell you, I opened on January 2nd of 2007, muddled through my first year, and then we had a huge recession. It's interesting because, again, I had minimal business training. I hate to be cliche, but I did have a bit of a build it and they will come attitude. On a personal level, it was not a fun time financially because I made no money. I took no money home. I went from being an associate veterinarian for all these years, making good money, to literally standing at a gas pump, looking at my credit cards, not knowing which one I could put $10 of gas on. Like this was a space for me that I'd never been in. I'm a very financially responsible person. Financial security is a huge value for me. So all of that was highly uncomfortable, and it was part of the process. It was part of the journey. And I got through it. I guess I just took it day by day, and eventually, obviously, things started to turn around. I mean, it was a minimal staff. My overhead, it was me and 3 employees at the time. I was my own manager. I did all my own bookkeeping. I did everything. So, yeah, we just got through.
Yeah,
But
took it
I
day
don't
by
want to go
day.
back. I don't want to go back there.
Yeah. Well, I think that what's
What-
interesting, what Kale and we've seen though, we've when we talk to veterinarians about default of practices, that it's very rare that practice owners hit default on their credit. Their loans, they pay those things. It's a very resilient industry, and so they made it through. So we'll ask like Bank of America, when have they seen anybody not make it? And that was the time. They said we go back. It was 2008, 2009. We're a veterinarian. Couldn't pay. Beyond that, though, the resiliency in the industry is pretty amazing, actually.
It is, and especially because for me, the company that I had originally done my financing with, which no longer exists, was a company that specialized in veterinarians and dentists because we are a unique niche where we need a lot of startup capital with really nothing to show for it. And they promised me a certain amount, got approved, all the stuff. And it was literally like 3 or 4 months prior to opening, they decided to cut that in half. So I opened the doors with not only did I have no working capital at all, I had to take some of the things I was going to purchase with that money and do separate leases and finances. So I leased my x-ray system through the company. I leased my blood machines through that company. So I had all these different little loans everywhere, nothing in the bank. So I would count the appointments to see, like, am I even going to make payroll? Okay, well, if this one comes in and if I get one more appointment, I'll have enough. It was literally that close. And you start saying, okay, well, I'll pay this one. I won't pay this one that month. And little by little by little, your head starts to come above water. And next thing you know, you're clean with all your bills and you grow from there. But it was, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't fun and
Yeah.
it was worth it.
Yeah. That's it. Some big lessons were learned that got you to where you're at today, for sure.
Exactly. 100%.
That was my next question. Was it worth it? I knew your answer would likely be yes, but I'm glad you said it was worth it.
Yeah, I remember
Yes.
we in the grocery industry, family stores, we had loans with GE Capital. GE was in the space of lending, and in 2008, the guy that was in charge of that division called us up and said, "Can you find new financing for the loans because we're shutting the division down and we need to sell the paper off." It wasn't that
Oh,
we
wow.
necessarily had to, but they were asking us to go look for a new loan. We had a long-term loan commitment with this lending company that was going out. What we weren't the lending issue, the actual lending company was. So it was an interesting time period to be like, really, you're going to ask us to go look? We have to go look for a new loan now because you guys screwed up, not us. I haven't heard of
Yep.
this before.
So, what made you want to exit the practice that you started?
So it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I guess the best way to say it is I was just done.
Hmm.
I'm very clear in my life about when something feels right for me, when something doesn't, when it's time to make a shift. I Most major decisions in my life are made, not ma most, all major decisions in my life have been made by a momentary hit, like something just it comes to me like, oh, that was like go to vet school. And summer of 2019, it was sell your practice. I had spent almost all of the spring of 2019 desperately trying to find a building to buy because I was still in my leased building that I was going to spend $1.5 million to build out to move my practice. Every single thing I tried to buy fell through. Buildings that had been on the market for years and I offered asking price. The owner suddenly decided they weren't selling. It was
Hmm.
very interesting. And one of my favorite sayings is man's rejection is God's protection, right? Because all of a sudden, fast forward to August, and I just get this message, this like sell your practice. And I didn't know why. I kind of was feeling done, maybe a little burnt out of the whole thing at that point, tired. I was just tired. But I knew there was another reason. And I just got into action, boom, 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 did everything I needed to do, got a situation where I was going to sell. And I closed on the sale of my practice January 29th of 2020. And 6 weeks later, I knew why I had gotten a message to sell my practice. Because I would have, let's just say, having been an owner through COVID would have probably done me in. I struggled. The hardest part of ownership for me was difficult conversations or conflict. I loved my team. We got along great. We laughed, we joked, I coached them. Everything was great except for when it wasn't. And that's when I really struggled. And having to navigate all the things that went on in COVID would have been really, really hard for me. So I was extremely grateful that not only do I have a high level of intuition, I have learned to follow it.
That's great. Yeah, because
So,
that timing there happened right before everything, a month before everything went. And what was that, March 3rd, 4th, or 5th when
yeah.
the announcements
Yep.
came out?
Yeah, it was literally 5 or 6 weeks before. It was the
Yeah.
very end of January. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll sell my practice. And I was glad that I did. And I was looking forward to other things. And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
everything changed.
Yeah.
So when you left that practice, did you have this vision, like at the time, that you were going to work towards what you're doing now, or was this something you found along the way?
So this has been kind of a lifelong parallel journey for me, along with vet med. I again started out with a degree in psychology, and as you mentioned in the beginning, been studying transformation, self-development, all of that in depth for about 15 to 17 years. So when after I sold, after a while, people were like, "Oh, you should be a coach. You should be a coach. You know, you're so good. You have all this training, all this knowledge." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'd like to, but I need some training." Like, yes, I have a ton of training. And I love the fact that even today I bring in so many different paradigms and schools of thought together in my coaching. But like I always say, just because somebody's an Olympic skier doesn't mean that they know how to teach skiing. So just because I had all of that and I could have a great conversation with somebody didn't mean that I knew how to be a coach effectively. So I went back and did multiple coach training certifications. I'm an ICF credentialed coach now, and I have specialties in leadership and transitions. And I felt that was the perfect integration of everything I had been studying for so long with now how to effectively use it to help people, get the most benefit from coaching that they can.
So the
So
psychology degree comes in handy.
it certainly does. Well, it did all through the practice of veterinary medicine because we all know dogs don't drive themselves to the vet.
No, they do not. That is for sure. Well, what is inspiration though there? I mean, people asking you, but you kind of knew you wanted. What was that aha moment, like you mentioned, where you're like, yeah, this is what I need to do?
I think I always knew it because how do I say this? My passion or obsession with understanding how we as humans function has always been there because of everything that I had been doing, training programs, working with coaches all the way through my journey and through practice ownership. I not only wanted to use what I'm so passionate about, but I started to become more and more present to a desire to kind of pay it forward, right? Like I don't even know how I would have gotten through those years without, not only the training, but like working with my coach, Melvin. And now it's almost like it's an honor now to be able to take all of this experience, both in VetMed as an owner, all the other stuff, and now bring it forth to others, whether it's one-on-one or even just speaking to a group to teach people some of these ideas that are very teachable, and that it's totally normal that they don't already know it because it's our minds are not designed to see it on our own. But when we hear it, we go, oh. And so that I can now bring that to others and help them to feel more satisfied, to get unstuck. And it's such a cliche thing to say, but literally, that's what I'm doing. And because possibilities, opportunities open up, and then it's like, oh, I never knew it could be this way. So when that happens, I can't even explain the feeling for me. It's just an honor and a privilege, and it's so like when something happens and you're like, yes. Like that's how it is for me. Like when somebody has an aha moment, I'm like, oh, I love it. Because I know that experience and how freeing it is. And we need it,
Hmm.
we need it desperately.
I think
So
that leads right up to this question we have right here. What are the most common mindset barriers in the veterinary industry?
the veterinary world is, and I don't need to tell anybody listening to this, but I'll say it anyway. The veterinary world is like no other. It is amazing. It is intellectually stimulating as veterinarians and veterinary teams get to do things that people in human medicine never get to do. The variety, the not only the knowing, but the doing, it's incredible. And at the same time, all of everything I just said creates a tremendous amount of stress and strain. Some of the mindset concerns in veterinary medicine is, especially with the doctors, is that we're selecting for a certain type of person who make great doctors, but may not always have been taught the skills needed to withstand the experience in the profession. So the mind of diagnosing and understanding disease and all of the technical things, or being able to physically do a surgery, is not the same mind always that knows how to deal with the clients or the employees or the bullying from society. So part of it is, I think, getting more education and more cultivation of awareness in individuals so that they can develop that resiliency. Obviously, there's a lot of financial stress, especially with younger generations of veterinarians. I mean, I I don't even want to tell you how much I paid to go to vet school. It's a fraction of what they're paying now. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to come out of school with these levels of debt, and how that alone can have this experience of defeatedness, if that's the word. So in general, I think that there is somewhat of a mindset in vet med of, I hate to use this, but there is a bit of victim mentality that I hear a lot of complaining, a lot of blaming, and it makes sense. And of course there is, because of everything that people are bombarded with day in and day out. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can't change what Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones do, but we don't have to look at it that way. We can learn to view the situations differently, have more empowering conversations, support each other, develop collaborative teams. Like, all of that is actually possible. Not easy. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. But I think there's somewhat of blocks to it, because as with a lot of things in life, people can't see it. They just don't see how. And so I think that's part of the reason I'm so passionate on helping people to see how.
That's a great way to put it, because that's when you're blinded by, the victimhood, or I think I heard it at Vet Partners when someone's giving a statistic about veterinarians on, death by suicide. List was third, and someone said, no, we're second. And you're like, that it's almost kind of like, yeah, it's a huge problem, but it's like almost like, no, we're second. Like, it's interesting. It's hard to put the feeling on, but it's hard to put the words to it. And besides, the only solution is what you're saying, is to show them the how, the what's possible, and what can be real.
Yeah. And I believe, I feel strongly there needs to be more mutual support. I mean, I see on some of these Facebook groups, which honestly, I don't even go on Facebook much anymore because it's just gotten so political, but I used to go on more, and, in some of the practice owner groups and things like that, as I've been in over the years. And my goodness, it's like people post anonymously, and they start their post with, please don't bash me. I do understand my mistake. What I'm asking is, like, they have to preface it with, like, with their proverbial guard up, like they're expecting this onslaught of attack. And boy, does it come. When I sit there and read through, I just sit there amazed at these people. These are your colleagues. These are people that maybe you didn't go to vet school with, but somebody went to vet school with, or you know what I mean? Like, this profession is huge, and it's not that big at the same time. Like, we're all like one community. We are one culture of veterinary medicine. And boy, it's like, we need to, I always say, like, we need to have each other's backs versus everybody having to watch their backs. So I think part of a mindset shift in this culture needs to be, let's stop blaming and stop bashing and start supporting and holding each other up and holding each other to our greatness. And yeah, you know what? We're going to screw up. And when I do, I want somebody to sit there and give me a hug and say, you know what, Jen, I've done it too. It's okay. Versus, I can't believe you did that. A totally different experience. I could go on all day about kindness.
Yeah.
It's a very big value for me.
Well, I think what is interesting, I think people get in their own echo chamber, right? And also that they're afraid to talk about what happened in their practice probably happened the practice across the street, the practice down the street, the practice across town, right? But everyone thinks it only happens to me. when it's
Right.
happening to everybody, and like I say, they can get together and support each other, share stories. And I feel that's a big part of your passion and abilities to share stories that you've lived.
There's definitely a level of relatability. Like I've had some coaching clients that have shared that they so much appreciated, like, like for example, one client in particular, like she also works with a therapist, which a lot of people do. They work
Mhm.
both with coach and therapist because they're different.
Yes.
And she'd say, I love talking to you because with my therapist, I'll say, such and such happened and I was really upset. And then she'll say, well, tell me about it. Like, what was that like? Like, why did you get upset? Da 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 da. And she said, when I tell you that, you just nod your head. Like you just know, you just get it. So that level of relatability is important. You were saying about, oh, it happened to the practice down the street also,
Right.
and how everybody thinks, oh, it's just me. Like, oh,
Mhm.
something happened with a patient or under anesthesia or whatever. I missed the diagnosis or prescribed the wrong drug or whatever the thing is. I would say, and this is so important, it's the same thing mentally. And this is part of, I think, from a very young age where my passion and my interest came into us as people. Because and again, this is speaking very general, but while we are all very different in how we think, how we perceive, our backgrounds, our values, all of it, at a level underneath that, there's so many commonalities. Like I say, if you're human, you've got your stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like nobody's immune, but yet each person thinks there's something wrong with me. I'm so insecure. I have, what people call imposter syndrome, which, it's a whole nother conversation.
Mhm.
But I'm insecure, or I have this feeling like I'm not smart enough, or I have this feeling like I'm not good enough, or that nobody's going to like me, or whatever the thing is. And they keep it like it's their little secret, you know, and then one day they like, in a program or with a coach or therapist, they reveal it as if, and they wait for the reaction. And everybody's looking at them like, yeah, like, well, I've got that too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're human, you've got it. Like there's nothing wrong with you if you're experiencing beliefs that keep you stuck, or insecurities, or just doubts, crippling fear of doing something wrong, anxiety, all of it is totally normal. It is a universal human experience for the most part.
Right.
Maybe there's some
Sure.
exceptions.
There's outliers. There
Um,
always are.
there always is. But
Yeah.
speaking in generality, I just super, super love to emphasize how normal it is. And there's nothing wrong or broken about anybody. You just can't see it because that's the way our minds are designed to not see it. That's why we need help. We need mirrors and other people.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we are we're designed. Well, especially in our society, we're designed to keep just going. Right? It's like
Right.
just sweep it under and keep going.
Nose to the grindstone.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think she said it perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not anything I can add to,
Yeah.
to
No,
that to
yeah.
make it better.
Yeah. No, but I kind of think as though like over this, a couple decades of being out of school here. What do you, from the 2000s to now? Same, different, or just like the level of this? Has it just gotten more, or is it still the same and just haven't been addressed? Do you have a feeling for that?
From my perspective, I think it's more because there's something that has been shifting in our society around that, because I think we've become obviously very separatist. Making up words today. I think people are more free with verbal onslaught than they used to be. And so there's more coming at people, veterinary professionals, that's who we're talking about. There's way back, if I had an upset client, I had an upset client. Never was I physically assaulted. Never was I verbally abused the way that happens now. So you take everything that always has been challenging about being a veterinary professional, because I mean, it's a great career and it's not easy. I mean, it's okay to say that. It is what it is.
Mhm.
And so I'm not averse to not easy. So what's going to happen is when a person is experiencing an onslaught of energy, whether it's verbal onslaught, whether it's the criticizing, the blaming, the devaluing. I mean, that's a whole other conversation of the devaluing of veterinary professionals by society. And they just sit there taking it, taking it, taking it, taking it. Well, then of course there's going to be an experience of being a victim to it. The so that's normal, that's natural. And then what happens is that translates over to life. So it becomes kind of like there's nothing I can do. This just sucks. My life sucks. I'm stuck. There's not, my team won't, or my boss won't, or I'm working for a corporate and they don't care, and the clients don't care. And it just becomes this spiraling of a story inside of an experience. And while that experience is really real, the stories that go along with it aren't necessarily always true, even though they feel true to that person in that moment. So when we can start to reframe that is when we can start to pull out of it. But I do think that it's more. I never saw people, maybe because we didn't have social media like we do now, never saw colleagues bashing each other the way they do. And it's just, there's a level of kindness that has left in some individuals in society. And on the flip side, I see a lot of people who are passionate about bringing it back.
Yes.
And I try to focus there. I try to put my energy there. I try to shed my light into the world, because for every high vibration person who's putting out great energy, it counteracts many, many multiples of the opposite. And so I just try to focus on that. But I do think it's worse. I do.
Well, yeah. So we're talking about well-being, right? We want well-being in the profession. So how do you walk someone through that? How do you break someone, get someone to that well-being? That's the how. That's like what we want to get to.
Yeah, so for me, well-being is things are set up, circumstances, environments, practices, whatever, lives are set up such that they're workable, not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect for everybody, but they're workable and manageable and designable so that people can create what works for them within reason. Not that every person should be like, all right, I want everything arranged around me. It's not about that. But when there are cultures, everybody talks about practice culture. Again, that's a whole another topic we could get into. But practice culture is recreated every single day by everybody who walks in that door. And when management, when leadership, and especially in these corporate entities, you know, to create, you want to talk about well-being for your people, the company that owns, I don't know, 100, 900 practices, anywhere in between or fewer. There has to be a commitment from the top. There has to be a plan. It can't be lip service, because lip service is worse than no service. And you tell people and then they sit there and roll their eyes and they say, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. It actually enhances the resignation and the disengagement. It's actually worse. Well-being is actually having leaders and managers, not only who care, but that's not enough, but who are trained and have the resources and the knowledge of how to create experiences that work for people, because practice culture is nothing more than an experience. What do people experience every day inside of this practice is how they then define the culture. And if what they experience is support and I got your back, and I know this is really important, it's going to be hard on the practice, but this event is really important for you. So we'll take the day, we'll figure it out. Not every week, but those are the things that make a difference. Not overworking people. And I get, there's the bottom line. Trust me, I was in business. I understand the bottom line and, the money. And also understanding that on the other side of every bottom line, there's people.
Mm-hmm.
And the people matter. And I will also say, from a business standpoint, these days in vet med, people are the rate limiting step. Getting enough doctors, getting enough team members. You can have 10 doctors. If you've got 2 team members, those doctors aren't going to be productive. You want to get people, you want to retain people so that the business can be productive. You be at the forefront of treating people well. You be at the forefront of allowing them to actually have happy lives that work. You will have all the employees in the world because at the end of the day, these are good people who want to do a good job, but they also want to be happy. They want to have families. They want to have fun and friends and work out and go to a concert and go to their cousin's wedding. That's basically, in my opinion, what a lot of it comes down to.
Well, no, it's
So,
that same thing as client experience, right? Where it's that if you treat the client really well, they have a great experience, they're going to go out and tell everybody about it. Not necessarily everybody, but they'll spread the word, right? And the best way to
right.
get clients in your door is by taking really good care of your current clients, for sure. And I think it also comes down to it's that word trust. We become a less trusting society of each other. And Dr. Peter Weinstein, he said there's in a talk at WBC, there's 3 things for trust is a must. He said, 1, having a sense of security and confidence when dealing with someone. Having a sense of security and confidence when dealing with someone. 2, having the ability to predict that someone will act in specific ways and be dependable. And 3, earning a level of credibility that has been built up over time. And that kind of really just hit me because the security and confidence, right, with somebody, being able to have a good conversation, confident in that you know your material, the predictability too, the dependability, right, to know that they're going to do what they say, not that lip service. And then, of course, yeah, it takes time. It does take time to build that up, and you're always earning it. So I like that you always trust is given and earned daily. Just like you said, you think your culture can change daily. Those things are evolving. And so the more that people can go, how do I trust somebody? I think that's kind of the thing, because it seems like we're in a society that says you shouldn't trust anybody. And that
Right. And
erodes it.
it's to me, the security and trust or the security and confidence part of it is having security in how they'll show up, but it's also at a more vulnerable level, security in your own safety
Yeah.
around that person. And I
Right.
think that's because again, there's this I don't know who took etiquette away at some point, but it's gone. And there's this like freedom of like
Yes.
verbal vomit of on everybody from some people. And so when people don't feel safe, psychological safety, some people call it, but just in general, people don't feel safe, they're not going to trust, or they trust once and then you betray their trust and it's like notch in the back of the brain. Never do that again. Just recently I was talking with a friend who sold her practice to a corporate entity, which is typically a good one. And there were some issues at the practice, and she went to the regional people that she's supposed to go to kind of come in and help with some of this interpersonal stuff that was going on. And they completely betrayed her trust. Like they just, we won't go into the details, but it was like, she is like, I will never, ever go to them with anything again, ever. So if we were to go to the top of that company and say, tell me about the cultures, tell me about the coaching and the support that your regional people are providing at the practice level, I guarantee you that's not what they would describe. So what's happening is then they wonder, well, now that 6 months later there was a problem, why didn't you come to us? And then they want to look at that doctor and blame, and they did not cultivate trust. So again, it's a huge monumental task, but it's the people at the top creating a culture of trust and the training necessary so that those people at the regional, they probably had no misintention, but they had no clue what to say to her.
Yeah.
They just did what they thought, right? And it didn't work. And so it just becomes this big mismatch of everybody just trying and failing and not trusting, and guards go up, survival mode, right? My mouth is shut. I'm not saying a word. I'll just put my nose down, do my job, and when my contract's up, I'm out of here. Is that what people want? Is that long-term sustainable for businesses when people are like watching their clock? When the hell can I get out of here?
Yeah.
So it's trust is huge, 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 huge.
Mhm.
And if you want employee engagement and you want employee loyalty and you want employee productivity so that people want to take that extra 10 minutes to explain to Mrs. Smith why the procedure is needed so that she books it, multiply that by 1,000 over your practices.
Yeah.
And the impact of those conversations not being had because people don't care because they don't trust you and they're not loyal to you and they're not engaged. It's all people stuff that I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to the bottom line. It's business, but you can't run a business without people.
No, you can't. No, there's no profit without people. They both go
Yeah.
hand in hand for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the if you look from the top down, I guarantee you those two conversations are different. The top down says, "Yeah, we do a great job at that," and the bottom up is
Right.
like, "Yeah, it's terrible."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's definitely a disconnect from the top to the bottom in a lot of these big organizations.
And that's why I think that there needs to be more of a diagnostic process. Like one of the things that I'm starting to branch into is like practice culture consulting. And it's like, there's the people at the top, whether it's an owner or a bigger group, and they have their perception. And they have no idea what's actually happening. Like we keep trying. We keep trying. We do this, we do that. And the team, they just don't care. They just don't appreciate. They're all just entitled, blah, 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 right? And nobody's wrong there. It's just a complete mismatch of experience. And I think sometimes it can take a third party to come in and have some conversations. And let's say, kind of like as a doctor, this is how I think. Here's the presenting complaint. Let's do some diagnostics. Let's talk to a cross section of everybody and say, what is going on? What is your experience at work? Tell me about a time when you had a problem. How was it handled? How did you feel? Who said what? Blah, blah, blah. Compile all of that into a report and then say, here's what's really going on and here's some things to shift it. Are you committed to that? So again, at a big scale, obviously that would take a lot of people to do something like that, but investing the resources to find out and to check in. We train our regional managers in this way. That's great. We're doing leadership training. We're doing blah, blah, blah. Awesome. Now, who's going back and saying, is it working? Are they effective? Right? So there has to just be that ongoing commitment, that ongoing inquiry. And at a small level, oftentimes having another person do an assessment and say, what's happening? Why can't I get my team? Why are they always upset with me no matter what I do? Blah, 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 all the stories. And I lived it. I get it. I say blah, blah, blah. I'm not dismissing it. I lived it all. I get it. It's so hard, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be, but this is why this is so important, this conversation today. I really do believe in it. I know we're passionate about it because we talked about it. People to make change, they have to have their mindset right. And so to have you, a veterinarian, and going in this, coaching, growth mindset field, I love it. It makes me excited to see your passion for that because it's needed and it is a great profession. And to open things up, honest, trustworthy, those are the things that are going to help out so much. So if someone wants to get a hold of you, well, how are they going to do that?
They can go to my website, which is drjenniferedwards.com, which is DR for doctor. And if anybody is interested in either private coaching, team development, if you're looking for a speaker at a retreat, a conference, workshop, all of it, I love it all. Or if you want a practice culture conversation, they can book a call with me. I'm always happy to jump on a free call if somebody's interested to talk about what they're looking for and whether it would be a fit to work together. That would be the best way.
You work around the country? You work remote? Do you work?
I work a lot remote and I travel.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to Texas next month to do a talk. So yes, I travel. I was just in Vegas with you last
Yes.
month.
Yeah.
So yes, but coaching typically is over Zoom or a similar platform. So
Oh,
they don't
great.
have to live near me.
Yeah, no, our coaching's mostly over Zoom too, because it's where way people operate today. It saves time, and it's good to see people in person for sure when you can. But for the most part, Zoom seems to be the way that works for sure. As we close out the podcast today, I like to think about it's that hey, the podcast is over. You've shut down the computer to Zoom, and maybe you're walking to get tea or or coffee or whatever your drink of choice is after something like this, and you're like, I wish I would have pointed out or said, or I wish they would have asked me. What is that?
Something that I say every single time I speak, every single time I do a podcast. My key point, my thing that needs to be said, the most important thing is always the same. And that is that if you want to be happier, if you want to be fulfilled, if you want a great life, you need to take responsibility for it, which is the opposite of that victim mentality we were talking about. So if anytime you are shaming, blaming, or complaining, that is the opposite. It's too much to go into in detail now. However, that is the key. It doesn't mean everything's your fault. It doesn't mean your experiences aren't real. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. And when you say, where can I be responsible? What choices am I making? Where am I, what am I putting up with? What am I tolerating? Then you I always imagine like a fishing line, you throw it out. It's like the reel. You are reeling back in your power to create and design your life, because as long as it's their fault, you're going to sit there crossing your fingers hoping they change. It's not going to happen. I always say there's no happiness fairy that's going to come and zap you on the head with her wand. You can do it. You are so much more powerful. Everybody out there is so much more powerful than they think they are. Trust me, own it, and you can shift it.
That's beautifully said. That's beautifully said. Thank you for allowing us to finish on such a high note, and you're right. And hey, we're here to work together. It's great to make a new friend, Dr. Jennifer Edwards. Thank you so much for your time today. And I'm sure we'll have to do it again because there's a lot of topics we can dive into. We can get more specific on some topics and noodle around on the podcast on it. Hopefully help people do what you just said. There's so much they can accomplish. So thanks so much for your time today. If you liked what we've got going on, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll have up on thevetapodcast.com information about Dr. Jennifer Edwards. And if you have suggestions, comments, things you'd like us to do, check us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Thank you so much. I'm Stephen Herman.
Kale Flasspolar.
And Dr. Jennifer Edwards. Thank you so much for being on the Veta Podcast. Take care, everybody.